Hello, good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here. Before we get into today's video, I just want to announce that I am doing another giveaway. So this giveaway is a Tier 8 Premium of your choosing. To enter, all you simply have to do is make sure you are subscribed to the channel and comment your username down below. So the way this works is I have a bot just like last time. It goes through the comments. You have to be subscribed in order for it to pick you, and it randomly picks one of you guys. And just like last time, the winner of this giveaway will have 24 hours to respond to either my in-game message or join the Discord and send me a DM or at me in the Discord. However they choose to do it, they have 24 hours to contact me. If not, I will have the bot pick another comment from down below, and you will have your choice of a Tier 8 Premium. And just like last time, if you want a tier, let's say a Tier 6 Premium, I would give you the difference in value of the balloons. So this is your chance to win a Tier 8 Premium of your choosing. Just remember, make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment with your in-game username down below. Alright, so today's video is the top 10 brawling ships. Yes, this is a full top 10 video, not a top 5 video. So I'm going to try and keep this under 20 minutes, but it'll be difficult. I'm basically going to have to go through and give a very short gist of each ship. And since I did the last, I think it was the top 5 video quite some time ago of the top 5 brawling ships, there have been a host of new ships added into the game that are suited for brawling. And, well, let's just go ahead and dive right on into it, starting at number 10. We have the Tier 7 Tech Line Soviet ship, the Sinop. Yes, the mighty Sinop, the scourge of last ranked sprint season. So the Sinop has 9 16-inch guns, and it does have the Soviet gimmick of the closer you are to the target, the better the dispersion from these guns. And of course, with the Soviet shells, you get all the special Soviet ballistics and things like that. So the Sinop packs one heck of a punch. It is also capable of taking that damage in return to a point. She's got some pretty good bow and cheek armor like most Soviet ships do, but she does actually have a pretty big citadel if you do manage to get around to her side. So she is squishy in that regards. But if you are used to playing Soviet ships, especially like the Moscow, Stalingrad, and Kremlin and all that, the playstyle is very similar to that, but she is very capable of brawling, and she does have kind of wonky turret angles because her third turret is set so dang far back on the ship compared to her other two turrets, especially if you compare it to other designs. But overall, she's a very good ship, a very strong ship, and as again, like many of us saw last ranked sprint season, a very, very powerful ship indeed. She's even more powerful if you have the special Soviet commander Kuznetsov. Of course, he has his Will to Victory talent, where once you get below 10% health, you get a free damage con and a free heal. So basically, you get a second chance at life, pretty much, with Kuznetsov. That's another thing to mention, too, with the Sinop. Since it is a Soviet ship, it's got the Soviet damage con, so you have a limited number of charges of those. But they cool down extremely quickly, and when you're in a brawl, that can be very useful, especially if you get a turret knocked out. Just pop that, and again, you'll have a new one extremely quickly. And if turret gets popped out, or if they manage to set a couple fires, then you can pop that yet again. The heals, you do get a limited charge of the heals, but again, with Kuznetsov, you can get 5 heals. And they are pretty decent heals all in all, but again, the ship does have an exposed citadel, so you do have that to contend with. But overall, a very good ship, and a lovely place to start out our list. Moving on to number 9, we have the Tier 10 Tech Line Soviet battleship, the Kremlin. So the Kremlin is, well, it's the Kremlin. Now, it would be a bit further up, but with all the nerfs and changes that Wargaming has done to it, it's really, in my opinion, it's a good brawler, but nowhere near as, insane as it used to be. So the Kremlin has 9 457mm guns, again with Soviet shells, so she gets all the perks there with those shells, which means they have some insane penetration. And used to, back when the Kremlin was first released, it had really good dispersion from 15 kilometers in, but also from 15 kilometers to 20 kilometers, its dispersion was still workable to where you could dunk on ships at that range too. Now they've really toned it down to where it's at the type of playstyle that they originally intended for it to be when they announced it, which is a very mid to close range ship that's good at brawling. That she doesn't have the best secondaries in. Well, actually, her secondaries are barely even there. But the concept was, at close range, so like 12 kilometers in, she has really good dispersion, and that's what she was meant to be played as. But when she was originally released, she was a bit too powerful, like I said, with her dispersion at longer ranges. But now she really is best played at really close ranges because she does have really good dispersion, again with the Soviet gimmick of the closer you are to the target, the better dispersion you have with your guns. And that is very true with the Kremlin. When you play her from like 10 kilometers in, her dispersion is fantastic. And again, with 9 457mm guns, she packs one heck of a punch. And just like the Sinop, she does have an exposed citadel on her side. People complain that they can't Citadel Kremlin. She's actually one of the easier ships to Citadel at higher tiers if you get at her sides. So while in a brawling situation where you're really knife fighting, that's going to be a big letdown to you. But if you angle properly and again know how to play Soviet ships, she can be really powerful in a brawl. But again, against a ship with proper armor for brawling, you're going to be at a big disadvantage. But again, just because of the power of her guns, and again with the Soviet damage con and the Soviet heals with Kuznetsov, she can be a pretty tough ship and a pretty difficult ship to deal with. Here's hoping they don't nerf her AA again for whatever reason. Alright, moving on now to number 8. We have the Tier 8 Premium Italian battleship, the Roma. Now, the Roma is it's quite a ship. Let me tell you guys that. It is one of the most interesting battleships in the game. That's a good way to put it. So the Roma has 9 15-inch guns, and with some insane velocity and some insane pins, to where she's so specialized for just blasting battleships. It's crazy. Her guns are so just hyper pin and hyper velocity that she will overpin most ships at range, especially talking about, well, most ships at any range really, especially when talking about cruisers or lighter armored battleships. She will overpin them like left, right, and center. But when she's up close and personal, she's one heck of a ship. She's got some fantastic armor on the front half of her ship. Don't poke her in her citadel though, because, well, actually no, if you're fighting against her, do poke her in her citadel, because if you catch her flat broadside or even like angled but not steeply angled enough, you will absolutely wreck her day. But in a brawling situation, she's probably just, that's her zone, that's her best place to be played. At medium ranges and even at like some close range too, the dispersion on her is so bad, and it's not like the Sinop and the Kremlin, where the closer you are, the better her dispersion is. It's just the closer you are, the more chances you have of actually hitting what you're aiming at. And again, when you're from like 10 kilometers in and knife fighting, that's when the ship is in her prime. And she even has a turret traverse for it. This was one of the first ships, battleships at least, to be introduced with a sub 30-second turret traverse. And if you build for turret rotation, which you don't need to in the Roma, I think you can get it down to something completely silly, like in the lower 20 seconds on turret rotation for a battleship. That's nuts. And that turret rotation is really useful when you get in those really close knife fights, because, if any of you guys have brawled before, which I'm sure many of you have, in battleships you have to pre-position your turrets, and sometimes just if you didn't start turning your turrets soon enough, or if they turn in a way that's unexpected, or you turn too hard, that can really throw you off. But in the Roma, you have the turret rotation speed to compensate for that, so you're good to go there. And again, with her insane pins, even on the German battleships where you won't citadel them, you will just, you're going to pin them at close range for sure. And with all 9 guns, you're going to put a hurting on them as well. And again, if you know how to angle, and the ship is also very maneuverable too. I almost forgot to mention that. So you can pretty easily dance around your targets if you know how to and with practice. Alright, so coming in at number 7, we have the Bismarck, the Tier 8 German battleship, the mighty Bismarck. So the Bismarck, I love this ship so much. She has 8 15-inch guns, and she has the best secondaries at Tier 8. And what else do I need to say about the Bismarck? Most of you guys are familiar with her. She, of course, has turtleback armor, the trademark armor of the Germans, which basically means that the ship's incredibly difficult to citadel from medium to close range. It's not impossible to. It can happen, but in 90% of the brawls you're going to get into with the Bismarck, you aren't going to get citadeled. So her secondaries can get out to 11.3 kilometers. She has guns that are fully capable of pinning 32 millimeters of armor in her secondary battery, and her 15-inch guns pack quite a punch too. The downside is, of course, with German dispersion, the guns aren't all that accurate. They're more accurate than they used to be, especially after the German BB dispersion buff back. Whew, man, that feels like forever ago now. But they're more accurate than they used to be, but still, the ship is best played at medium to close range, and the Bismarck also gets hydroacoustic search to aid with its avoidance of torpedoes, which you really don't want to eat any torpedoes in the Bismarck or any German battleship, really, because of the lack of torpedo protection. And the Bismarck it's an amazingly fun ship. It's quick, it's maneuverable, it's a very, very, very nice brawler, and it would be further down on this list, but it's missing something that a lot of ships from this position down have. But overall, the Bismarck, a very solid brawling ship. If you're looking to brawl and want a tech line ship to grind up to do it, look no further than the Bismarck. Moving on to number 6, we have the Tier 7 German tech line ship, the Gneisenau. So the Gneisenau, the only reason it's in front of the Bismarck is because it has that thing that I mentioned that the Bismarck doesn't have, and that is torpedoes. The Gneisenau, for all intents and purposes, is extremely similar to the Bismarck. She actually has the same main battery guns as the Bismarck, but she's missing one turret. She only has 6 guns instead of the 8 that the Bismarck has. The secondary guns on the Gneisenau, they can only get out to 8 kilometers, but at Tier 7, that's pretty good. And her secondaries are all capable of pinning 32 millimeters of armor. Now, her accuracy isn't as good as the Bismarck, especially since, she is missing 2 guns. But again, after the dispersion buff, her guns are way, way, way more serviceable than the old Gneisenau. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be hitting shots consistently at medium to long ranges. You're not. But again, from medium to close range, the guns are so much better than they used to be. You can actually consistently depend upon the guns to hit targets from within about 12 kilometers. And I know that doesn't sound like too much, but for those of you that played old Gneisenau, you guys know what I'm talking about. Now, her torpedoes, she has 3 torpedo tubes per side, and they have a range of 6 kilometers. And that is, of course, the great equalizer. When you're in a brawling situation or a knife fighting situation, those torpedoes will save you so much, so much grief. Now, that, of course, has to be taken into consideration with her main battery guns, and that's kind of why her main battery guns aren't the best, because, again, you do have these torpedoes, which at Tier 7, 6 kilometers doesn't sound like a lot, but at Tier 7, that's a pretty decent range. It's only 2 kilometers less than the secondary range on the Gneisenau, and once you're in that close, Gneisenau, it's so specialized for this style of play that, once you've closed the gap to a ship to that range, it's pretty much over. And keep this in mind, too. Gneisenau is one of the fastest battleships at Tier 7. She has a top speed of around 32 knots, which is extremely fast for a Tier 7, which means she can pretty much control the engagement range at Tier 7. And, again, she has turtleback armor. She has that good old German armor scheme, which means she's pretty tough from close range. A fantastic brawling ship and a great knife fighter, too. Alright, moving on to number 5, we have the Tier 8 Premium American Battleship Massachusetts. So Massachusetts has 9 16-inch guns, and they have German dispersion. Well, actually, she has German Sigma, but American dispersion, which means that while the shells come out of the guns kind of wonky, they don't fly all over the place too much. They pretty much stay in the dispersion pattern that they leave the barrel of the gun, and since she does have American dispersion, it is pretty consistent, which means once you play the Massachusetts for some time, you get used to the dispersion pattern of the guns, which means you can aim accordingly and consistently hit targets. And again, it is 9 16-inch shells that you're throwing at the target. And she was the first American battleship that could get her secondaries out to 11.3 kilometers. and they have a much quicker reload time than her American counterparts like the Alabama, which means that she can really throw these secondaries out there quite quickly and quite accurately. The American secondaries are much more accurate than the German secondaries, but they do not have the pinning power of the German secondaries. They mainly do their damage to heavy cruisers and battleships through fires, but against light cruisers and destroyers, they can easily chew them up. Now, what makes the Massachusetts so special is really her damage con and her heal. The cooldown time on both of those consumables is extremely quick. Sub 40 seconds for the damage con, and I believe the heal is like below 60 seconds as well. I just can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but it is extremely quick. And keep this in mind too. This is a battleship that can get her secondaries out to 11.3 kilometers. They are extremely accurate when you build for them, and she has good AA, and she has 45% torpedo damage reduction, something that the Germans can only dream of ever having. So you have all of this in a battleship that's meant to brawl. Now, her armor isn't that great, and that's why they compensated that with the damage con and the heal cooldown being so quick. And her heal is actually pretty good too. It's not a super heal, but it is still a pretty decent heal. It's the improved American heal that all the American battleships got, I think, like 2 or 3 months ago. So she packs one heck of a punch. She can take a hit or two back in return, but she can't really consistently keep doing it like the Germans, especially if she takes some pretty nasty hits. Because again, from close range, she doesn't have turtleback armor, and she can eat a fair few citadels. She's not the easiest ship to citadel, but she's not the hardest either. If you played American battleships, you know what to expect from the Massachusetts Citadel. But a very fun ship, and honestly one of my favorite ships in the game. And that is our number 5. Moving on now to number 4, we have the Tier 8 Premium German battleship, the Odin. Yes, the new kid on the block, the Odin. She has, by far, some of the best armor at Tier 8. She's got an icebreaker bow, which means she's got a piece of armor that wraps all the way around her bow that can bounce, actually, yamming shells. She has a 90mm stern. I think that gets overlooked a lot. She has a 90mm stern plate, which covers almost all of her stern, which means nothing's going to penetrate her stern. Turtleback armor, and this ship is just fantastic. She's really honestly more like a battle cruiser than a battleship, but she's still labeled in the game as a battleship. And she has the longest range secondaries at Tier 8. If you build into them, you can get them out to 11.6 kilometers, and they can all pin in 32mm of armor. Now, she doesn't have as many secondaries as the Bismarck does, and they do not have the same angles that the Bismarck does, but when you can get these secondaries onto target, they are fantastic. She's quick, and she also has Tirpitz's torpedoes. However, they are mounted at the rear, like Graf Spee, but if you played Graf Spee or any cruiser with torpedoes mounted at the rear, or the Key, you kind of know what to expect, and you can actually use that to your advantage in a fair few situations. The Odin is this far up on the list because her armor is that good. Now, Odin detractors often say that she only has 52,000 hit points. Yeah, but if you play her right, play her angled, it really doesn't matter because her armor is literally that good. If you know how to angle armor, if you know how to just snap your stern out real quick to get your torpedoes or your rear turret off and snap back on target, you'll be fine. And yeah, her main battery guns aren't that great because they are small for her tier, but I mean, the secondaries are so good. You have torpedoes, the ship is pretty quick, and again, her armor is so fantastic, it all makes up for that, to where she's a fantastic ship, and an extremely fun ship to play at that. And again, a great knife fighter, so that's why she's up here at number 4. Number 3, we have the Tier 9 French battleship, the Alsace, the mighty, mighty Alsace, with 12 15-inch guns. Now, her 12 15-inch guns, they do have French pins and French shell velocity, which means they are going to hurt like hell when they connect on a target. The thing is, though, they did nerf her Sigma back, I think like 3 months after she came out, to where her guns do kind of go all over the place at range, but once you close the distance and get within that sweet zone of about 12 kilometers, oh my god, The guns don't have time to fly all over the place, and when those 12 15-inch shells connect on a target, it's a painful experience for them. On top of that, she also has amazing secondaries. Now, again, they don't pin quite like the German secondaries do, but they do fire extremely quickly when you build into them, and they have a decent chance of starting a fire. But they will absolutely chew up any destroyer or any cruiser that gets within your secondary range, which is also 11.3 kilometers, and they will make their day absolute hell. On top of that, she does have French armor. So, that's a good and bad thing, because as we know, French armor in this game is it's either a black hole that eats shells that, it'll eat a Yami shell, and that shell will only do like 1400 damage sometimes, but then sometimes a cruiser shell or hit you for like 10k out of nowhere. It's French armor, it's good and it's bad, but it is pretty good for brawling overall though. And she has speed boost, which means she can become quite a little fast, speedy girl, and pretty much run down any ship at tier 9 that you want, except for like the Georgia. But she's a great ship, great secondaries, great main battery guns. She also has pretty decent AA too. Most of the ships on this list, with the exception of Massachusetts, don't have that fantastic of an AA suite, but Alsace and Massachusetts does, and you have all that going for in the Alsace. All right, moving on to number 2. We have the Tier 8 Premium German battleship, the Tirpitz, so the sister ship to the Bismarck. There's three main differences between the Tirpitz and the Bismarck. 1, Tirpitz has torpedoes. 2, Tirpitz does not have as good of an AA suite as Bismarck. And 3, Tirpitz does not get hydroacoustic search. She has to give up her AA and her hydro in order to get torpedoes. And again, like I was talking about with the Gneisenau now and the Odin, torpedoes are the absolute equalizer in a brawl. Ships that have them, so the Tirpitz, the Odin, and the Gneisenau, they can quite confidently go after higher tier ships, knowing that you've got torpedoes ready to throw into their side. And Tirpitz with the same guns as Bismarck, the same secondaries as Bismarck, just adding torpedoes to that just creates, again, the ultimate knife fighter package there. Now, again, her AA isn't that great, so you can get abused by carriers quite a bit, but in a knife fight, AA doesn't matter, and you got torpedoes to equalize that fight. Alright, moving on to number 1. We have the Tier 10 German battleship Grosser Kurfürst. I doubt anyone didn't see this coming. Of course, the GK, my favorite tech line ship in the game. The GK is, of course, the king of brawling. You can have 12 406mm guns or 12 420mm guns. I go with the 12 420mm guns, because in a brawl, that's 10,000 more damage per salvo, and in a brawl, you need the knockout power rather than the DPM. That's just me. Also run, of course, a full secondary build on the GK, and of course, the GK secondaries, all of them can easily pin 32mm of armor. You can get them out, the secondaries out to 11.6 kilometers, and with a full secondary build, they are absolutely terrifying. Not to mention that GK used to have the highest hit pull in the game, but Kremlin came in and took that title away from the GK. But GK, turtleback armor, great secondaries, 420mm guns, can easily kick the Kremlin's butt any day, all day. At least from my experience, at least. But again, I have like over 600 battles in the GK, so I kind of know exactly how to play the thing. Decent AA, not the best, not the worst, but with a secondary build, that is of course going to boost your AA up there. Turtleback armor, of course. She doesn't have an icebreaker bow, but she does have 2 60mm plates that almost make an icebreaker bow. There's like a tiny little T on the front of the GK where the Yami can still pin through, but unless the Yami has really good aim, it gets really, really lucky. They aren't really going to be hitting that area. And of course, she has hydroacoustic search to aid in the avoidance of torpedoes. Since the GK is the GK, it has terrible torpedo protection, of course, like the rest of the German battleships. But in my opinion, the best brawler in the game. I know she doesn't have torpedoes, but honestly, with her secondary guns and her main battery guns, I mean, it would be nice if she had them. It would be really freaking nice, but it would be too much if she had torpedoes, or they would have to, of course, have taken some other aspect away in order to compensate her for having torpedoes. But overall, my opinion, the best brawler in the game. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a bit of a longer video, and I did go kind of quick through the ships. I didn't want it to be like a 40-minute video. But again, thank you guys for watching. Let me know, do you prefer top 5 lists or do you prefer top 10 lists? Because top 5 lists, I can spend a little bit more time talking about each ship. Top 10 lists, unless I want it to be a 40-minute video, I gotta speed through them pretty quickly. Anyway, remember to leave your username in the comments down below and subscribe to enter the competition for the Tier 8 Premium Ship giveaway. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. And I hope to catch you guys in the next one.